Hey guys, this is a quick intro for the video that you're about to see, which is an interview, well, not so much an interview, more of a discussion with one of my friends, Matt from JaYoe Nation. He's been at this YouTube and social media stuff far longer than I have, a very interesting guy, and he's stuck in quarantine right now. He just came back from the US to Ningbo, and so he's stuck in his room and he's bored, and I thought I'd just have a chat with him. We do talk about the quarantine a little bit. He's got a lot of that content on his own channel, so we don't cover too much of it. But we do talk a little bit about politics, society, social media, and a few other things. The first 3 or 4 minutes of the interview is it's a little bit choppy while our connections get going. After that, it gets a little bit better. But either way, hopefully you enjoy. So without further ado, here's the interview. Here we are, Matt. So we finally managed to connect on a chat, which is probably pretty good because you're bored after you're in a quarantine. This isn't really an interview. We're just going to have a chat, talk about some general things. And I guess first things first, we introduce ourselves to each other's audience. So for you first.
Hey, Daniel. Yeah, we actually met once before. as I was cycling around the world. I was in Shenzhen and I went to a beer. What was that? A beer festival?
Yeah, that was right. That was a craft beer festival.
It was cool. It was cool. I was there with my friends and we bumped into each other. And he seemed like a cool guy. I actually put you on my blog, but yeah, I shouldn't be here. I should be on the road somewhere in, I think, trying to figure out a way to jump from Indonesia to Australia, because I planned a few years ago to cycle around the world on a recumbent trike, and recumbent trike is like a 3-wheel bike, 2 wheels in the front, 1 wheel in the back, and you kind of like it's a very relaxed way to travel. And I decided almost 8 years ago that I didn't want to do trading and business in what I had been doing for since I was like 16. I'm 40
Right.
now.
Oh, okay, now you're coming through a little bit more clear. So, yeah. So you were what I heard up to. You were on the trike. It's an easy way to travel. Didn't want to do business since you're 16.
So I decided to drop my business and cycle around the world. And my idea was to cycle from China to the United States, contraption and tell. And so I started my YouTube channel. I went to Maryland, North Korea, and I've been able to become a little wiser along the way. I have a daughter and a wife in China and here in Ningbo. I'm in Ningbo right now, which is south of Shanghai, if you guys don't know. And I came here for Chinese New Year, which I normally do. I'll travel and then I'll stop and then I'll go home and I'll come back to the road and then I'll stop and I'll go home and just visit home. And so I came back for Chinese New Year, and it coincided with this crazy virus outbreak. And so I left right as they were closing all the airports and stuff. I decided to pick my family up and fly from China to the United States and stay with my family in Detroit. So we self-quarantined in Chicago, where we landed. It was sort of a harrowing flight. I was not impressed with the way USA was handling it then. And then it just continued that perception that America was definitely not doing what I thought was necessary, considering what I had left in China. And I'm like, if this comes here, we're going to be in big trouble in America. But I was still holding out hope, and I was still kind of thinking maybe they were going to kind of get some traction on it. Turns out not really. And so cases started to blow up in the USA, and Annie, my wife, and Eva, we decided as a family, wow, that's much better. I'm so used to the idea of video requiring VPN.
In the final file, if you can be heard telling your story, I'll leave it in there. If not, I'll cut it out. But I guess what I'll do is I'll quickly introduce myself, because some of your guys are going to be watching your channel. So I started vlogging kind of around the Hong Kong protest period of time, and I got quite vocal on that. A pretty unpopular opinion I had according to Western standards. So I'd say a little bit more controversial than your channel. a little bit more, maybe a little bit more political. Although I have gotten into some really interesting kind of interviews, sitting down with people and getting their opinions. But definitely some of them won't jive with with your audience. You were saying there was one guy who showed up and said, "I can't believe you're doing something with Daniel Dumbass," which
Yeah, yeah.
which I thought was funny. And then you did a because we have a live stream coming up with two other guys, right? And we were
Yeah.
preparing our posters. And then your poster, you found the most ridiculous photo you could of me and said, "Introducing Daniel Dumbass." I thought it was
Yeah,
so
yeah,
great.
yeah.
And you said you posted it. I was like, I wouldn't have mind if you actually did. I thought that was really funny. But you can imagine how some of our audiences will really be at odds with each other a little bit. I mean, even my own audience. There's a group of my audience who I really appreciate, who they just hate everything I say. And you know, it's a small percentage of them, but they always make sure to put something, and they critique like every part of the video. But at the end of the day, they're watching every single video, and they're still listening, and and that's fine. That's actually a credit to them, that they can listen to the whole thing, they can disagree with me, and they can type out what they want to say. Now, if people, you know, if there's going to be people who just say, "Oh, I'm not even going to listen, I'm going to tune out," that's far worse. But I think it creates an interesting opportunity for people who maybe are on your side, who wouldn't specifically seek out some sort of a controversial opinion or political opinion on something, but now has a chance to be exposed to it. And then from my side, to see somebody doing something pretty cool, riding around the world.
Yeah, you know, it's the riding around the world is so ambiguous. You know, you can be right wing, you can be left wing, you can be progressive, you can be anything. You can be a libertarian. It doesn't matter. Travel is universal. So I've been able to sort of amass a small family of people from such a diverse views, and some of them don't like one side, some of them don't like the other. But I believe a lot in nuance. You know, there's a black, and then there is no black, there is no white. There's a gray area, and there's discussion in that gray area, and some of it leans one side, some of it leans the other. And I think it benefits us to listen to as many viewpoints as possible, so that we become wiser as people. That's why I like traveling. For me, has just been incredible, because I've been able to gather all sorts of different viewpoints. You know, some people in America have a negative view of universal health care, but I've ridden through a bunch of countries that actually practice certain types of different healthcare. So I think that I have a more nuanced opinion, and it's a valuable opinion. And just like you have been living in China, and I have as well, and we have a unique perspective as well. I mean, it's important to bring different opinions into our lives, and I've tried to do that on a very casual basis on my channel, because I don't want to drive away anybody, and I don't want to insult anybody. But I also do want to impress upon people my perspective, and hopefully that perspective steers their own perspective. You know, and you can do it in a subtle way.
So the thing I'm curious about, though, is because you see that, you know, there are some celebrities, they spend their whole career playing the safe ground, you know, being just the all-round lovable person who doesn't matter what political stance you have, you can be their fans. And I wonder, does that ever get frustrating for you, where you know that that's your philosophy, you know that's your approach, but you have something that you really, really want to say, and you say, you know what, this is going to get me in trouble with the kind of base that I've built, and it's just going to cause too much kind of drama. Do you ever get into that situation?
The Jason Priestley stance? You know what that reference?
I'm not sure of the reference, but I'm sure there's many celebrities who just, you know, and then all of a sudden they come out towards the end of their career. They say, no, okay, I'm doing this. I'm supporting this candidate or whatever it is.
Well, when I was younger, I was in the 90210 generation. Remember Beverly Hills 90210? I don't know if you knew that show, but it was about some high schoolers. And there was the jocks, and then there was the preppy girls, and then there was the nerds, and then there was Jason Priestley. He was like the down-home guy that was friends with everybody. And, you know, you knew what he stood for, but everybody loved him, you know. And when I was when I was younger, I loved the idea of that character, how he could bridge the divide of all these people, you know. So, but you know, today it seems so polarizing. Even in that whole 90210 generation, there was lines that you could draw between groups, and you could kind of tie people together loosely. But it seems like it's like the Big Bang, you know, and everybody's sort of moving farther apart, and pretty soon the light from one perspective won't even reach the light from the other perspective. Everybody's going to be in the dark, you know, and so you know, I have had you know, I have anybody that knows me knows I'm progressive, you know, left, right, whatever, but I'm a pretty progressive guy. I think that we should be helping those I think what is that? The rising tide raises all ships, you know, and so I have some friends that are more not right wing, but more capitalistic, I guess, and they think that, you know, you bootstraps, you know, if you don't pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you're not. That's the true indication that you're successful if you do that. But you know, a lot of people start off with a better hand of cards than others. You know, if you got a shitty hand, you're going to be starting off. So I have tried in my videos to say certain things. I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. I think, you know, I think people know that, and but I've said sometimes my opinion on what he's been doing, and I get some kickback from people say they're going to unsubscribe, and that I should keep they actually counsel me and say I should keep my stuff apolitical. And I don't know, I feel like I've been able to do that for a while, but I don't know how much longer I can do that, because I do have very strong feelings on it. And I do feel like the heart of me as an American, the heart of our country is really, and the heart of the world in a lot of places is dividing and crumbling. And do I want to be the quiet voice in this, or do I just want to share my videos by example? And I'm wishy-washy on that.
You know, it's interesting to even imagine that we have to think like this now, where you know that if you're going to say your opinion, it's inevitably going to cause conflict and divide. I mean, that's a sad place we're at, where it's like we should be excited that somebody who I usually listen to, who I follow, who I enjoy when they are on their trike, they're going to tell me something that I don't agree with. They're going to tell me an opinion that I completely don't agree with. But I have this sense of connection with him or trust with him because I've been watching him travel all around the world. This is going to be a great opportunity. Far greater if this guy I've been watching all year speaks up and says the exact same thing I want him to say and says the exact same thing I've always been thinking. No, wouldn't it be so much more exciting if he had something to say that you completely disagree with? And I think that's the way we should be looking at these things.
You know, it's interesting because sometimes you don't even need to say anything for them to take such offense. For example, this weekend we're going to do the talk amongst the four of us, and the title, just the guiding title is Xenophobia, which is, you know, the anger impressed upon Chinese people around the world that might be unfounded. That's why we're discussing it, right? And so they only saw that title, saw that I was tied to that, and without even understanding, maybe I'm pro Xenophobia, you know, maybe I'm pro, you know, who knows? But they only saw that word, and people are so triggered by just, oh my God, that's not what he might say something I don't like. And I mean, I have 1,300 videos on my channel. If somebody knows me, they know me real well, better than my family knows me. You know, I'll run into people in Korea or Vietnam, and they'll say, "Hey, Matt, how's your daughter? How's Annie?" You know, they know about everything. And so if you know all of this, and yet one word without even context or explanation can give you such a vile reaction that you don't want to even be part of. You don't even have to not watch a video. These people don't want to be part of my community anymore because of one word without context. It's a very weird place we're living in.
Yeah. I mean, even if the word identified something truly negative, like, I mean, talking about xenophobia in any sort, you would think, okay, all right, this is a pretty good thing to talk about, or this is a pretty thing to not have. It's not like it's even a word that's something like I don't know. I can't think of anything right now, but a word that's like, why would you want to be associated with that? But no, I can't imagine somebody saying, why would you want to be associated with an idea to reduce the amount of xenophobia that's going on out there? I can't imagine how that can run through somebody's head. So there's that problem. But then just like you were saying, topic aside, no matter what, no context, they just tune out right away. And it's just, obviously our systems are set up that way too, with our Facebook feeds knowing what we like to see and giving us more of it, Google knowing what we want as in our results, and we don't have this chance to bump into things. I grew up with a lot of the same TV shows you did. I'm 1 year younger than you. I'm going to say that with a little bit of pride. But so yeah, we are. Makes me feel just a little bit better. But
I'm 26, you're 25. It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. But we channel surfed when we were kids. You flipped through different channels. You ran into different news stations. Your TV wasn't curating your feed for you. You bumped into whatever, whether it be a right wing, left wing news.
I mean, I remember the rabbit TV, click, 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 click. You had like 5 options, or then it was the cable and you had like 30. But now you have the internet, so there's literally millions of options, and you can curate.
And the internet is learning who you are every single day and feeding you more and more of what you want, and in effect, and not giving you what you are as a person, but shaping you as a person thereafter, because it just keeps pushing you further and further down that way. There was a TED Talk by a guy, I don't know his name offhand. He was a black guy who wanted to explore the alt-right. And what he was doing was he was trying to join like alt-right groups or, this kind of stuff. And it was really, really hard for him to do. Like his algorithms knew what he wanted and would keep pulling him back. And then what he did was he signed up for a completely new profile, completely unconnected to his old profile, started posting racist remarks online, joining these alt-right groups and doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden he's in. He's finally getting to see the truth of that side. And what ended up happening was he ended up understanding them so much more. He started talking to them as friends, learning about their families, learning about their hobbies, and then they became more human to him. And then perhaps as a result, the idea of working together a little bit more became a little bit more possible. Because we're being pushed so far to our sides that it almost seems like we're becoming 2 separate species. And so what he did was he did something to kind of rehumanize that element that, okay, we're all humans. We all have our ideas. Some of our ideas might be flawed, but why don't we just talk about it?
Leveling the playing field somewhat, or creating new playing field, I guess, by starting up fresh, I think that we can become entrenched, and we're all guilty of it, and once we're in a bubble, I try very hard to listen to all sides, even the ones I don't agree to, because you never know what you're going to pick up. There was a person that owns a ice cream shop in the city I grew up in, and they built this business from scratch, like worked really hard, and then built this business. It's very successful and stuff, and he was talking to me, and he's fairly right wing, but he's an open-minded guy too. I mean, we have really, really great conversations, and he was concerned about raising minimum wage and the effect of that it would have on his business. And I opened my mind to accept his perspective, and I didn't come all the way to his side. He didn't come all the way to my side, but we probably inched closer together just slightly. And then enough of those times happen, you find this middle ground that is helpful, to having a better perspective on the world in general,
Yeah.
So I think most people wouldn't have a conversation like that with me, the one I have with him,
I think it's really important for people to recognize wake-up moments when they see them. So for me, my one was where I started listening a little bit more to the kind of far-right kind of news networks and stuff like that after the incident at Lincoln Memorial, when that kid was standing there and then the drummer came up, and was drumming in his ear, the kid with the MAGA hat.
Oh, yeah, the Indian guy.
Yeah. So they had, the Indian guy, but beforehand there were some, I can't remember what kind of group they were identifying as. They were hurling insults at the kids first, calling them homophobic names and stuff like that. And the kids are pretty good. They're like, so what, you're calling us gay? It's like, what's so
Yeah,
even
yeah.
if,
What?
what's the problem? Yeah, and they were like really, really progressive, and they were really handling it well. And the one thing that kid did, he just stood his ground. And there's still people who disagree on this, and there's still people who will disagree with me. He stood there. He did have a little bit of a smirk on his face or something like that, but when you saw the other angles, there were times when he looked really nervous, like, what the hell is going on? But this guy, it's not like he was blocking his path. They specifically came up to him. And when everybody was just blowing up on this kid, and I did it too in the beginning, when I didn't see the other camera angles, I shared this photo. It's a black and white photo of a black guy in a bar with everybody like hanging around him with their arm like this, like looking at him in a really intimidated way. But it was done. I did it in a way, and to kind of make fun of that kid in the red hat. And then when I started really looking at it more and thinking about it and seeing the zoomed out footage, I was like, how can we get this so wrong?
Yeah.
And then so for me, it was an epiphany for me, saying, how could I get that so wrong from just looking and judging from that zoomed in clip? And then the second was, how can everybody else not admit that they got it wrong at this point? And to this day, some people don't. I don't know if you have a different opinion on that event.
You know what I do?
You have these moments that make you think.
I try not to have an opinion I don't have all the information on. You know what I mean? Like I saw that video, and I thought the kid looked a little douchey. You know, this old. I think we're talking about the old Indian guy comes into the group, and he's playing. Yep, and everybody's kind of mocking him a little bit. But you know, there was too much going on before that I didn't know. You know, and then you see something, you need context around it. And there's so many things, so many contextual things. There's some I hate forming opinion without having a solid grasp on the topic. So I mean, I literally will say, I'm not. This is my zone. This isn't my.
That's a good way to do it.
It's sort of why like my videos are unbiased, because I feel like I'm not educated enough to really embark on certain things. There are some things that I have learned a lot about, and I'd be willing to talk about those things, you know, but there's other things that I back off on, because I think all of us think we're smarter than we are, and we feel like because we have access to the internet that we know everything. And I think that's really horrible thing, especially today. Everybody thinks they're a virologist. Everybody thinks that they know all these cures to this disease. They know where it came from. 100% sure it came from America. 100% sure it came from Wuhan in a laboratory that's 30 kilometers away. 100% sure all of these different things. And I'm like, the virus grew out of this area. It's now around the world. Let's deal with it. And then if somebody wants to have a full-fledged investigation and pick apart all the pieces, that would be a great book. I'd love to read it. But let's not write the book before we have all the information. And some people are angry at me for that, but I what am I going to do? You know, I'm not going to comment on something I don't have all the information towards. So.
Yeah, I think there's a few different approaches. I mean, obviously people talking about it and investigating and looking at it, that's an important piece. And I think people, the environment has been created where a lot of people, they don't even want to put their opinion out there on the same grounds that you're using now. But there definitely is a usefulness of putting your idea out there, saying this is my opinion, but putting it out there in a way where you know that you could be wrong and you're looking forward to seeing the feedback on it. Whereas a lot of people get it into their head. Yeah, a lot of people get it into their heads, especially if they're doing social media. You need to form your opinion. You need to make sure it's bulletproof. You put it out there, and as soon as people start attacking it, you remove them from the comments or you shut them down. But you've already made up your mind, and that's too. I think social media people should be able to put something out there and be ready to say, guys, I got this one wrong.
You know, that's interesting, because like the comment section, right? You get craziness in your comment section. I get craziness in my comment section, and the loudest voices sometimes are the least educated comments, or the most violent or angry, and that's where I'm getting back to, is that probably most correct answer is the most nuanced answer, and the people with the most nuanced answer have the same attitude I just said, where they're like, I'm pretty sure I'm right. I've got a lot of pieces of the puzzle that make sense to me, but I'm not going to comment because I don't feel it's necessary to propagate something that I'm not 100% on. But the people with the most crazy views, the most aggravated and probably skewed views, are the ones that are punching the hardest. And so you might have a group of people that are correct, and one of them's punching you in the face, and the one that's punching you in the face is the one that you're going to have to listen to, or the one that's making the most impact, And I mean, sometimes in my comment section, I'll have 20,000 people watch a video, and there'll be 3 people that make a comment that just, whoa, where did that come from? And they're the one that sticks in my head. And that's one of the bigger problems right now with the way society and the internet is right now. The loudest voices and the most outrageous voices get the most attention, and that's not cool. In some ways.
Yeah. I mean, there's some. I'm gonna say it like it is. There's some comments. They're just so. I can't use another word. They're just so stupid, or they are so confident in such a ridiculous idea, and even the logic is so messed up in the comment. You have this natural urge to want to say, "Come on," and explain what's wrong with the logic, but you can't do that every day. So what I do is and it's not going to go. It's not going to go anywhere. Yeah. So the people who actually write out a criticism and they say, I think you're wrong because of this.
Well thought out.
Like they're well thought out. I'll engage with those, and I'll even sometimes super like them or even pin them to the top. I have at least 4 or 5 videos where the pinned comment in my video is one that completely goes against everything I said in the video. And I think that's the way to do it, and you engage with those people. I did get into a point with some of my videos where I slowly started talking to the more ignorant comments, the more flawed logic comments that were being left, and it makes a percentage of my video comments. And I was reminded by the larger group. They said, Daniel, what are you doing? Why are you even addressing that? And they said, and then that's when it kind of switched me, and I was like, you know what? I keep going in this direction. I will introduce the criticisms that really are valid, or really made me think, or really made me stop. But for the most part, I'm going to be continuing to support the people who understand what I'm trying to do here.
And if you end up going down the rabbit hole too far, you're going to have the majority of your audience, the silent majority of your audience that agrees with you, or that understands where you're coming from. That's just like, we know this. That's not what we're not here to watch you debate people that we all agree don't know what they're talking about, or we all agree is counter to what we're interested in watching, and you end up stifling time that your viewers really enjoy watching certain things. I mean, probably don't want to watch you arguing with people that they don't identify with anyway.
Right.
But there's a balance.
Yeah, there's a balance. And you know what? Sometimes, last night or the night before, it was one of those times, once in a while, mostly on Twitter, not on YouTube, I do like to get in it just for the banter, just having a little bit of fun with it, like little, nothing really violent or rude, but just back and forth. And once in a while, I enjoy that.
Yeah. That's understandable. I lost it. Can you hear me?
It is kind of a waste of time. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. You know what? I want to shift topics a little bit, because one of the things. So first of all, in terms of us knowing each other, in the last video, you reminded me that you met me in the beer festival, and I was like, and I put 2 and 2 together. I'm always embarrassed by that kind of thing, because one of my biggest problems is that I can't remember names and faces. I always remember people's stories, but I just can't remember names and faces. I can meet somebody like 2-3 times. And I think you were saying you have like a similar bit of a similar issue, yeah?
If you ask any of my ex-girlfriends, any of my family members, they will give you stories of woe regarding my horrible memory. It is, and you know what? It's so funny. You would think that with such a genetic or ingrained deficiency that I would probably choose a more solitary career, but I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a relationship guy, and I make videos that show this. So I'm like literally showcasing one of my worst qualities, which is networking. I'm very good with people interpersonally, but having that memory, I don't know where the hell it goes in my head, but it just disappears.
On one hand, I'm sorry that you have that, but I'm happy that somebody can relate with me, because you can imagine having a bar, and I love having conversations with customers in my bar. You can imagine the next day I come in, I'm mortified. I don't know, do I know these people? And sometimes what I'll do is I'll come right in and I'll go right to the bar, and I won't look at anybody, because I'm like, okay, I gotta, and I'll try to ask my staff. I get my staff actually to help remember people for me, and I say, okay, the guy sitting at A1, do I know him? And then once I figure it out, I remember their whole stories, but I just can't put the name and the face together with it. And I'm so embarrassed by this. I even got books to try to remember people's names and faces. So, I heard from someone before, was when you don't remember, it's because you don't care. And that affected me even more, because obviously I do care if I'm buying books to try to fix this issue. Right, and so when I'm thinking about doing like subscriber meetups and stuff like that, this is my biggest fear, that the second time they'll be like, hey, sometimes what I'll do is when I come in, if I get a look from somebody and it looks like they think they might know me, I'll talk to them like they know me. And I'll be like, hey, oh, yeah. And then they're like, who are you?
I don't even know who you are.
But that is less embarrassing for me. I can deal with that. That's less embarrassing for me than blowing off somebody who I'm supposed to know. So I'm okay with that strategy.
Yeah, and then I used to work on a yacht as a harbor master. There was a big restaurant. All boats would come in and dock, and they were all rich guys with boats. And my tips depended on me remembering these guys and being interpersonal with them. Like I had to. Hey, Mr. Smith, how you doing today? Oh, yeah, how's the old lady? Or whatever you'd say. And so I used to keep a notebook, and I just write notes in it. But then you'd forget the notebook. You'd forget where you wrote the note, and it's just like a self-fulfilling curse, But one of the greatest things is having somebody around you with like a memory like Fort Knox. And Annie has a memory like Fort Knox. I keep her on my hip, and I'll be like, who's that? Do I know her? Do I know that person? I'll ask you that all the time. Like, do I know that person? Why? Why do I know that person? You should be like, Matt, she's that person did this X, Y, and Z thing. Her name's, I'm like, you met her on
Matt, this is your daughter.
That's your dog. That's your dog. You raised that dog. You're straight on the street. It's like this whole story. Right.
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing.
My son, my eldest son, he's 8 now, but from when he was 6 years old, he's really good at remembering everything. So when we're walking around, if he's with me, he would remind me. He would help say, oh, yeah. I said, who is he? He says, oh, you were talking to him about this. I'll say, oh, yeah.
For me, traveling, it's actually somewhat useful because I'm never in a place for more than one day most of the time. So if I don't remember you, it's okay because I'll probably never bump into you again, But it also is tough because some people will say, hey, when you get to Sydney, look me up. And I'll be like, sir, I am sorry. If that's more than 2 days away, I will not remember you at all. You please have to follow my journey and then make sure that you let me know in the future when I get around your neighborhood, That's definitely I wish I had a steel trap memory. They say that Bill Clinton had a great memory, and there's anecdotal stories where he would go to a function and he would meet somebody. And he would say, how's your wife? Oh, yeah, your daughter is doing really well. What's your daughter's name? And then they'd say, my daughter's Stephanie. She's 12. And then, they'll see the same person. He'll see the same person 2 years later, after seeing thousands and thousands of people. And be like, how's your little Stephanie? She doing okay? Like an amazing thing. I mean, think of all the people that guy meets, Really, really.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Sorry, 1 second. Just need to. So, onto a different topic. I noticed I watched your intro video on your channel that you did Mount Everest. You climbed Mount Everest.
Yeah. That was my first take on doing daily videos on YouTube. I wanted to travel around the world, but I didn't want to just there's a lot of people that cycle around the world, and it's like a race. It's like, I did it in 30 days. I did it in 20, they're all trying to get, I'm like, what? what's the point of cycling around the world if you're not seeing it and doing things? So
Yeah.
the objective was to check off my bucket list. And so when I wrote my bucket list, I said the number one spot had to be filled by something that I didn't ever think I would ever have the ability to do it. It's the idea of, first it's about putting one foot in front of the other, and then there's that time when you step to top, and all of that work, all of that energy has resulted in you getting to a physical place. You know what I mean? It's the physical manifestation of accomplishing a goal. I mean, like there's sometimes we do work projects and it comes in a monetary way. It comes into, it's like a feeling of success inside, like you run a race or something. But to stand on top of a mountain, it's the epitome of this effort equals this result, and the two come together when you're standing on top. And man, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that really ties into a human nature element. I remember listening to a podcast a really long time ago, and they were researching the people who are the most satisfied with their life and with their jobs, and one of the highest ranked in terms of job satisfaction was demolition workers, because they go in. It's probably fun to destroy a building also, but the key wasn't just that. It was, at the end of the day, you know exactly what you've accomplished. There was a building there when I showed up, and now it's gone. Whereas if you're an office worker, sometimes you lose track of, what the hell am I doing here? What is it? What am I accomplishing? Especially if you're working on projects that have, but I would imagine it ties into the same human elements that you're talking about. This was your goal. You did it. You got there. You finished it. You did what you came for. And it's just raw. It's just really... I lost you there just as soon as I finished the word raw. So we'll start off from there.
I heard it.
Okay.
I heard it. But that's why, what was I saying? I was going to say that's why, my lifestyle is so perfect, because that's what I was going to say. The frequency from start to finish of the project matters too, because if it goes too long, you start to lose sight of where you started, and it doesn't make the finish that glorious. Like trading, I'll do a project for 6-7 months, logistics, production, dealing with remake samples and all this stuff. It's just a constant barrage of problems that you're solving. And at the end, it's more of a, oh, thank God that's done, rather than a, oh, wow, I did it. You know what I mean? And so when I'm cycling around the world, everything is compacted inside a day. You start from A, and then you go to B, and it's 100 kilometers. It's hard. You work hard. You sweat every day, and it's just, along the way, there's new things to look at. It's not the same thing over and over. You would think it's the same rehashed thing, but it's every 100 kilometers I've done has been completely unique. It's one of the reasons why I think doing daily videos is nice, because you can share the nuance that is inside of every single day that's different and tells a different story. So, oh man, there's nothing more fulfilling than the life I'm living. Well, when I'm not under quarantine in China, when I'm on the road.
Yeah, it's great for ourselves too, because I'm going to be doing a chat with somebody from the U.S. who wants to talk to me about the situation on the ground, what we were feeling throughout the whole situation, what are the things that happened, back through my own videos, because this whole virus thing, it's gotten to the point where life has changed so much in that short period of time that the way we thought before the virus started seems like a lifetime ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually had to go back through my own videos and say, oh, okay, that's interesting. We weren't really, one of the biggest takeaways I got was actually, you know what? It's kind of flipped in the sense that here in China, it was the government who took it more seriously before the people did. Whereas in a lot of countries right now, you've got the people saying, come on, we're supposed to be doing something. We're not ready for this. Help us. Where it was like, we weren't taking it seriously on the ground here in China, and it was the government saying, guys, you need to take this carefully. You need to treat this carefully. And that was an interesting point for me to go back to my video and realize that and say, oh, so it's like a journal for ourselves as well, which is great.
What was the original topic we wanted to talk about? I think this ties in very well with that, right?
Well, so yeah, it's about you going, and so I think, I guess one of the things I wanted to address, and I understand why you went, and I know you got a little bit of heat for it, and people who judge. But I'm going to start off this with just directly saying you can probably imagine how some people would see you kind of leaving, heading out
Mhm.
when it looks like, getting pretty bad here, and then coming back after you realize that this is the safest place. And so, and I can relate with it in a way, but I just want to ask, I mean, you can imagine that there might be some people that are like, a little bit critical of you because of that, right?
There's all manner of people. You have the people who are expats in China that are feel like I abandoned the expat way of life and ran from China while they were hunkered down and fighting it out like good expats should, I guess. And then you have others who are Americans and think, how in the hell are you going to leave the country built on freedom and to go back to China? You escaped in a lot of ways. I had Americans saying, you finally escaped and you're free. You better enjoy America and stay here. And why? And then there was some, because I did a live stream, and my live streams are like current day. My videos are like past, and they're like, wait a second, is he in America or is he in China? He said he's in China, but his video, like there's this confusion. And so, I mean, but like you said, this situation evolved. I mean, we went from pro-Magnon man to Stephen Hawking. As far as the distance between one and the other, it was just totally different. When I left China, well, first of all, I'm American. My wife is Chinese. We have 2 home bases. We have the ability to move from one to the other. Some people don't have that ability. Some people don't have 2 home bases. If I didn't have family in the USA, I don't think we would just up and go to the USA. But we were in Ningbo. Ningbo didn't have a lot of cases at the time. Hindsight, really didn't have a lot of cases at all. We could have stayed here and been perfectly safe. But hindsight is something we don't have in the past, And right. So we had been witnessing news and things going on in Wuhan, and it was disastrous at a certain point. And
it was scary.
It was scary. And my daughter is locked in the house, and she has. If you had the ability to give your child a little bit of a better lifestyle during a time of strife, why wouldn't you do it? And I had just traveled through Cambodia and seen. And I'm not trying to say that they were the killing fields, but I was going through places where there were tragedies in our past, and I'm like, there is a real probability. It was minute, but it was still there that this thing could spread like wildfire and be. I was thinking about those people that were in Phnom Penh and that were sticking it out there and that got massacred just as a wave of violence went over the country. Now, obviously, the violence in that period of time is replaced by a virus in this period of time, so it's different. But I was like, if I can get out with my family, I think I should take that opportunity. And so we bought a ticket, and we bought return tickets, because return tickets are as cheap as one-way tickets. Sometimes one-way tickets can be more. And so we picked a day that was, a couple of months out. And when we went to the United States, we felt like that was a good decision to make. And at the time it was, at the time it was a good decision.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it too, is that about hindsight, because what you experience now isn't necessarily something to say, oh, it turns out I was wrong, I should have stayed put. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you would do something different in the future, because it could have been a lot worse. It could have ended up being that was the correct decision. So your principles to do that may still result in you doing the exact same thing next time, which I think it's a bit too difficult to judge other people for that. For me, myself, if my wife's father is living in our place right now, and he condition. Our youngest, I've got 4 boys. Our youngest doesn't have his Canadian passport or anything yet. I'm sure that wouldn't have been a big issue. I'm sure the Canadian consulate would have helped us out. But my father-in-law doesn't have a Canadian visa, and we didn't want to send him back across the country to their hometown in Jiangxi during it like this. sort of like,
Yeah.
okay, we got to stay with the family. But if we didn't have those considerations, we probably would have left also.
Yeah.
And it just turns out, though, that it was the better decision to just stay put. It turns out that this is a pretty safe place, and they're
Yeah.
taking it really seriously.
Well, and if America was taking it more seriously, we wouldn't be here either. There was a lot of conversations that me and Annie were having in the USA. We were prepared to move our tickets later if we felt like America was really gangbuster and had ventilators for everybody and had been preparing since Chinese New Year, since China exploded. They could have immediately started putting systems in place. But it seems like everything is just they're chasing things, and you can't chase a problem and try and get on top of it. You're constantly dealing with the fallout, and I fear for America.
Yeah.
I feel like they're in store for some real hard times, and some of that is inevitable, but some of it is not. Some of it could have been negated.
I mean, I tackled that topic in one of my videos about this whole blame game thing that's going on, and it's really hurting things. Back in January, when China managed to genome sequence this in record time and publish it to the world so that everybody could start preparing.
Well, that's because they have the code because they created it,
Right, yeah. So whatever, even if those people want to say it, they created it and then they gave you the codes so that you could all prepare regardless.
Yeah.
That's obviously a ridiculous theory, but yeah, I know what you're saying. Look at what the CDC, overseas governments and scientists were saying. They said, this is amazing, because they said that they were a little bit concerned with how SARS was handled before. There wasn't as much transparency. And they say this is just like night and day. They're releasing all of their information real time. And then now the tone completely changed. And now that it's on people's doorstep, they're completely forgetting what they said in January, that, wow, they're giving us a lot of information to prepare here, and completely shifting the narrative to saying, I wish they told us how seriously it is. What do you mean you wish they told you how seriously it is? They shut down a city of how many millions of people? Yeah. It's like, how much more obvious could it be that they think this is serious?
I'll even play conspiracy devil's advocate and say that there was, and it's not really a conspiracy. The beginning few moments of this virus expanding in China could have been handled much better. They went from zero to, they had to understand what was coming their way. They didn't know anything about the virus at all. And so they had to go from zero to a defense of this thing, and some things were handled wrong. America's not handling things perfectly either. So,
yeah.
But but they were able to do this, and the world should have seen that. I mean, you close down a city or an entire province, 50 million people. This is serious, and even still today, you're seeing people say it's not so serious. And everyone's doing this. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It ties in so well to what you said about hindsight also, because the question is, from non-experienced, non-expert people with this, and say they should really do something different next time. And I think that also. I think that's the case. However, we have to be open to the possibility that maybe they shouldn't do anything different next time. How many times have they gone through this exercise before when one doctor or somebody wants to shout, oh, we've got a huge issue here, and start telling people to the side instead of through the official channels, and they ended up saying, no, stop, we have to do our investigation first, and it ended up being nothing. How many times did that happen? We don't know. Now, that's a problem with the system here, too, because there's no transparency with the censorship. And that's one thing I said. I said it would be great if the whole purpose of the censorship here is to protect the masses and everything like that. They should have some sort of a transparency report at the end of the year when we're far enough away from it and say, these are the things we censored this year, and this is why, and then kind of debunk them all. But right now, we don't know how many times was there a potential medical scare that wasn't serious, that they did silence, and they silenced correctly, because people would have just panicked for no reason. We do see it in this one, and so we're judging based on this one individual incident. Again, I think they should do a lot of things differently, but this is something we should keep in mind in the back of our minds.
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting statement because, like, I hear that argument like SARS wasn't a big deal, Zika wasn't a big deal, but we got through it, and then they kind of use these kind of anecdotal situations like they weren't global, they didn't kill as many people, or they killed more people or whatever, but it was blown out of proportion. They're basically saying this was blown out of proportion this year, and it's like we're all sheeple being dictated how to fear. And the way I see it is that, like, if we got through something as a society, I call that a win. Like, if you get to the point where you're like, oh, this is bullshit, we should just go out and have a good time, and then everybody dies, like the full, because if the hospital shut down, then the 2% mortality rate will go up to 10 or 15%. I mean, because people that would ordinarily survive won't, because there won't be enough people to care for them, like what's going on in Italy right now. And so so like people, I get really frustrated when people say SARS wasn't a big deal, we got through that, no problem. Well, we're lucky, we worked hard to fight that, and we got through it. So it's not a negative. They're like using it as sort of like a tool to say, well, that wasn't such a big deal, we don't need to worry about it, so we don't need to worry about it ever. But we actually fought it, and we did a good job. We should say we should do more of what we did in SARS, and maybe up our ante so that we can defend against it. It's just a weird, I don't know, there's so many weird arguments out there that invalidate human life as to the economy, and there's just this, like, there's this huge scale that everybody's kind of pulling out of nowhere that's like, how we're only a couple of weeks into this thing, really? And they're like, I think we need to go back. This is too rough, man. My stock portfolio sucks, And it's like, what are you thinking? I mean, money is not the end all be all. And I'd rather have my grandpa died a couple of years ago, and my grandma and my dad, and before that my grandma on the other side. And so I don't really have anybody left in my life that is in that danger zone, that high risk zone right now for the virus, But I would give anything to have more of my grandpa around. Anything. I'd go broke twice, And I just, this weird thing going on. It really makes me depressed.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, you even had that guy who went on TV saying he's willing to sacrifice himself and everybody else his age to keep the economy going. It's like, what is going on? Where are our values? And it's like,
and this guy's rich. This guy's a millionaire that's saying it. So he's not bagging groceries or delivering mail or doing something.
He's got lots of money to pass on to his his kids and grandkids.
He's not even going to catch a virus because he's not going to be. He doesn't have to integrate with people. Tell that to the person that has an interpersonal job. Go back to work. I don't know. It's just so crazy. It's so crazy. JaYoe, my whole thing here, means doing good things, enhancing your life in a positive way. Job means add, and yo means fuel. So, like, add whatever you need to succeed, to live a great life, to accomplish the goals that you want in life, become a better person. And I just feel like these things are sort of like, oh, what's going on in the world is just so antithetical to my whole mantra.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's an interesting time. So, yeah, and so now you're, and what we're talking about is continually improving from this. So I was actually quarantined in 2008, 2009 for H1N1 when somebody on our boat from Hong Kong had a fever. And I'm looking at, so, and it ties into what you're saying. It's not like nothing was done. There were things done to mitigate this. I mean, H1N1 still traveled all around the world, but I mean, if we just didn't do anything at all, it would have been a lot worse. And so, but speaking about the quarantine thing, I'm curious to find out a little bit about more about your case now, because now you're in quarantine. You came back from the U.S. and now you've been put into a hotel here.
Yep.
Are you? So what's the process like? How did you get from the airport to the hotel? Are they testing you every day? This kind of stuff, and how does the food work? Yeah.
Well, I have a whole video series on it.
Oh,
So if
okay,
anybody's
okay.
interested, they can watch the video. I pretty much recorded everything. I had the camera at my hip. I was a little nervous to record too many people, but
No,
you know
maybe,
what?
so maybe I'll point people towards that, and you can just give a kind of a Cole's notes, a very
Yeah,
basic
yeah.
kind of yeah, yeah.
I mean, the videoing, like people were preoccupied. I could have put cameras up. I don't think anybody would have really cared. They were so concerned with their own health. Everybody was suited up in hazmat suits. It was a really stark contrast. Leaving America, nobody was wearing masks in the airport, like nobody. The people behind the desk that were handing out tickets and dealing with people's passports, no gloves, no masks. I was like, I understand when masks are limited. Some people have to be like, okay, well, I don't have a job that requires a lot of touching, so I'm not going to wear a mask so other people can. But the person behind that counter, that person needed a mask. Holy shit, it was crazy. And then you come to China, and it's like you're out of the movie Contagion, and everybody is like suited up, you know. So they took us from Shanghai airport. The process took a long time. The flight from Chicago, by the time we landed in Shanghai, was over 50 hours. My daughter's 3.5, so you can get an idea of how crazy that could have been. But we ended up coming all the way to Ningbo. We thought we were going to be able to home quarantine, but the rules changed at the last minute. They drove us to this hotel, and there was no negotiation. So they stripped my wife and my daughter away from me and put her in her own room with my daughter and me in this room. So we were separated. It was sort of shitty, but
Well, do you know
I'd rather
what
than
the thinking is behind that?
take it serious. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that they like to isolate people so that they can focus their attention on individuals rather than families. There's a potential that maybe I picked something up in the bus, and there's the potential that Annie didn't. So maybe by separating us, they have one sick person instead of 3, or you know what I mean. So I guess I understand it. It's a little aggressive. Obviously, she's my wife, so if I'm sick, she's sick. But there's a potential for me to have it and her not. So I think they're probably just playing it safe. But
That's an interesting turn of events. Americans separated from their families at the border.
right, from their foreign other half
Yep.
family. But I mean,
Yep.
every city does a different. Like JaYoe 60, he's just having a good old time in his hotel. He can walk around.
Yeah.
My door is closed. Like I can't leave. I'm locked into this room. As soon as we left the lobby, I had not seen he took a breath outside of the building. So seeing his video was like, asshole. but it's okay. It's okay. I'm it took a little while, like not really long, but it took about 30 minutes for me to be like, no, I'm here. It's what they deem is necessary to keep us as a society safe here. And hell, I'd rather them what is that? I'd rather have them mistake on the side of caution or something. I'd than not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think, I mean, you've been here in China long enough that you kind of know that's how society works here. We all kind of, there's more of a focus on the rights of groups of people rather than individuals. And as a result, you actually, as an individual, end up with more rights when you think about it in terms of being more safe and everything like that. And yeah. And,
two things. Okay. Sorry. I was going to say, food, there's meal plans, but my wife orders food. I get it delivered to the house, and pretty much anything I want. So salad is going to be coming and knocking on the door at lunch. They deliver 3 times a day. You have to take fever check. They're going to give me a fever check once a day. Beyond that, I wanted to ask you something.
Sure.
Because we're going to be doing this sort of Xenophobia thing. And the discussion is going to be based on our interpretation of how Chinese might be treated outside of China. I think that's kind of the direction of the conversation. My question to you, and to myself even, is what's going to happen to me as a foreigner in China with regards to the perception of us now that there's all sorts of there's counter narratives now going on in America, that it's this China virus, and that it's Now the Chinese here are getting angry and frustrated that, they're being labeled, because I'm looking at a guy out the window. He's wheeling a wheelbarrow. He has nothing to do with this whole thing. He's an innocent bystander,
Right.
And so, but now the powers outside of China are labeling him a virus spreading, tool, instrument of the government. You know what I mean? And so I'm a little bit concerned, not concerned so much, but interested to see if I'm going to receive any bigotry on my side over here from Chinese people who are frustrated with the way that they're being perceived globally, and now we are the face of that.
I think so. Based on looking at comments and hearing from people on the ground here, I don't think people are going to start treating you suspiciously out of retaliation. It's not going to be retaliation, but they will start treating you suspiciously out of fear. All the new numbers are coming in from outside. They don't know how long you've been here. It's the same for if they knew they were standing in front of a Chinese who just came from the U.S., they would be just as fearful. But the fact is they can't distinguish them from anybody else. But you as a foreigner, doesn't matter if you've been here for 2 years and haven't left the country like I have, they're going to say, ooh, okay, I better stay away. I'm hearing stories of that. I haven't really experienced it personally. Yesterday, I had to go into the parking garage here, and I went through one of the car washing places. And one of the customers in there, when he saw me, he had his mask on his chin. He quickly put his mask up. So, you'll get that. I've heard of some gyms that have a message on the outside apologizing to their foreign customers, saying that our customers will be a little bit nervous if we let you in at this time. So it is going to be an awkward, weird experience. Now, the thing is that the government knows that this is a problem, and they've released guides about not discriminating against foreigners. In the subway system in Shenzhen, they have ads playing about on the subway screens about not discriminating. So they've put something together really quickly, and it's amazing to see. I was kind of who are here, who live in China. They're the kinds of people who speak out against this kind of discrimination against overseas Chinese elsewhere. Two, we've been on the ground here. We fought this together with you, and for some of us, we didn't leave even during the coronavirus situation. But now it is this discrimination that will potentially get some foreigners to say, "Okay, I'm feeling uncomfortable here, and I want to leave," which would be the ultimate irony. And that was before I knew how much of an effort the government was putting forward to try to offset this. And seeing that, whether it works or not is another thing, but seeing that really felt good to see that we're not alone. We're being recognized. They know that this is a growing. They don't want it to happen. When you look overseas, you have now. Obviously, he's come away from this strategy a little bit. You had the absolute top leader in your country calling it the Chinese virus and throwing their own people under the bus, and it would be the opposite feeling. Yeah, it's not only the people. It's not only the people who are against us. It's the institutions. So if we get to the level here where we feel like it's the people who are against us, and I don't think it will go as far as assaults like we're seeing overseas, at least the institutions are with us, and they know that this is an issue that they've got to work on.
It's funny. You hear Trump say that they're branding us as the people that invented this virus and stuff, but so I'm just it's just constant deflection, constant blaming. But he's saying they blamed us. No, I didn't see any video of Xi Jinping standing up at the podium and saying that it's an American virus and it came or that the Americans planted it here, or that's the equivalent. That is the equivalent of what he's saying. And to be honest, if Xi Jinping stood up and said something like that, we would all be in a different circumstance. Because I think there's a big nationalism here, and that would be a crazy circumstance, just as crazy as it is on that side. And there's this weird false equivalence. I'm not saying that there's some idiots here in China that are saying some bullshit and ruckusing, making a ruckus. There's a lot of people in America that make a ruckus too. I would love for you to make a video about what China's doing to make foreigners feel. Well, that would be a nice video actually to make. But you would be the CCP shill that everybody claims you to be.
I'm already apparently I'm already a
It
Wuma,
would
so
be
that's okay.
crazy.
I could still do it.
But I think that's an important
Yeah.
thing. You know? I think that was an
Yeah.
important thing to draw attention to.
Yeah, I think it is a good way to do it, and yeah, you know, there are people saying stupid things. There's even that politician on Twitter who's going a little bit aggressive with this. Hey, he's doing it and he's asking questions, but I still think he's going a little bit too aggressive with saying, "Did this come from the U.S.?" But that's what people do overseas, isn't it? They take this thing they see in a group chat on WeChat
4chan.
or something that showed up on Weibo, and then they represent it as the country. They say, "Oh, now China's blaming Italy." It's like, no, there was literally a handful of idiots who were doing it. And if we were to do the same thing about other countries, if we were to take what somebody said on 4chan, you know, as representative of the entire country, oh man, the U.S. would fare a lot worse in terms of saying this is what America thinks. You know.
Yeah. I mean, even people in the Republican Party. I mean, like even it's like there's this whole. I don't know. It's just crazy. It's crazy. There's crazy on both sides everywhere. There's crazy, and to just the responsibility of the person at the very top of the pyramid is so critical in the way that we have. I don't really agree with the way society is structured. I think that a lot of it is archaic and unnecessary. I sort of have a Joe Rogan idea of, you know, like, you know, he's kind of like, why the hell? I love it. Like he's high as a kite. He's like, why do we need all this single leader stuff, man? We need to all love each other. I wish we could all read each other's minds. That would just even the playing field every time. That's very interesting, you know. But I do agree that, you know, there's this like weird dichotomy that we listen to this one character that sits at the top that half of us, if not a third of us, picked in the first place. And he's the end-all be-all of everything, but it is the way we are, and seeing as though it is the way we are, we have to be really responsible what that person says at the top. And right now we have somebody that's very irresponsible at the top, that's saying things that incite all sorts of results that he doesn't. I don't even think he realizes that the people who are in America right now, who might not be Chinese, might just look Asian. They're going to get the wrath if he continues down this narrative path. This blame China for even the deaths in America that might have been caused by his lack of leadership and lack of being able to get a real handle on this. They're going to, you know, my grandma died because of you. You know, my grandpa died because of you. And there's going to be like all this finger pointing and, oh my God, who knows where that's going to lead. It's really dangerous.
Yeah.
Anyways. We'll talk more about that in a couple of days.
Yeah, exactly, in the live stream. I wanted to actually just backtrack a little bit regarding your tests. Do they have to do actual COVID-19 tests on you also while you're there?
I don't know what the tests are. They gave me 2 tests. Annie and Eva only got 1. They don't tell us the results. So I asked them, I says, how long till I know? You know, 多少时间我可以知道如果有发烧 or no, you know? And then they said 24 hours. And I said, okay, that was 4 days ago. So I don't know. They don't. I think if I have it, they'll be at the door knocking.
What do they do? Do they take like a swab? They've got to get it right up your nose. Is it one of those ones?
The first one was 2 swabs, long Q-tips, and they go down the back of the throat all the way, just not to the gagging point, but just right there. The second time they actually came in the room, and they gave 1 at the back of the throat, and then 1 they put up the nose, and it goes. It's very surprising how far that canal in the back of your nose goes. But they actually pushed some bookers down, which was quite nice because I got some hangers on. They just kind of like, it's like a rotor-rooter. I was like, ooh, that's nice.
Yeah. That one's been there for a while. Thank you.
She give me more tests this side too next time. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, no, because I know when a few years ago when my son was tested and he tested positive for influenza A, that they had to take a swab and it went right up. They put it right up his nose. It looks really uncomfortable. So yeah, why don't we wrap this up here because we have a live stream that we're going to be doing on Saturday anyways, which should be pretty fun. We'll probably put this video up on both of our channels, and then we'll continue the discussion then and see how it goes.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, man. It was good talking to you.
Pleasure talking to you.
Yeah. Talk to you again soon, buddy.
Sounds good.